Hey kids, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to make a response video to a video that was posted by the Reading Corner last Friday. Pretty much what Willow was saying in this video was, should she stop reading YA? Why she loves YA. She was talking about how, she's in school right now and she's got this class where the subject of YA literature and its validity kind of came up during class, and I have some thoughts. Like Willow, I was also introduced to the YA genre through Twilight. I have to be honest, I didn't even know YA was a thing. I always just kind of considered books to be books, and I knew that there were romances and sci-fis and all these different genres, but I really didn't know that books could also be separated into age categories, pretty much. Middle grade, YA, etc. So I remember reading Twilight, and at the time, I remember thinking, man, this was such an incredible story. I have to read some more stories with teenagers in them because apparently that is where it is at. Granted, this was 2008 when I read Twilight, or maybe it was 2007. No, it was 2008. So I was 22 years old and stupid, in the sense that I was completely invested in this story. I'll put it this way: when Edward leaves Bella in the woods, I cried. Today I am 31 years old, so I have very different views on Twilight than I did at the time, but my point is that that's what kind of pulled me into the genre to begin with, and I'm really glad that it did, because a lot of novelists can churn out some really good quality YA literature. I don't only read YA literature. I read all kinds of literature. I also happen to very much love Ernest Hemingway. I love Emily Dickinson, Edgar Allan Poe, Charlotte Bronte. I mean, there are a variety of authors that I enjoy reading. But I mean, really, when you think about it, a YA novel isn't really that different from any other novel. It's still literature. And yes, we're following teenagers, and yes, a lot of the problems are teenage problems, but not really. I mean, there are adults that go through feelings of insecurity, they go through confusion, they go through trying to figure out who they are. I mean, even me at 22, when I read Twilight, I kind of knew who I was, but I wasn't so sure of myself that I was just completely fine going through life. I was in that kind of awkward period where it was after high school, after film school, and now it was like, okay, well, now what? And, just kind of still trying to figure myself out. I will have you guys know that a person does not reach full maturity until the age of 25. Just let that sink in for a second. 25 is when a person reaches their full maturity. So, I mean, even for people that are older than 25 reading YA, it has nothing to do with living vicariously through the characters. I've heard that a couple times where people are like, oh, you read YA? So, really? You want to relive your teenage years that bad? No, turd. That's not it at all. They're great stories, and coming of age stories, it makes you feel good when you watch a teenager kind of go through their struggle and figure out who they are. It's a great feeling. It's kind of akin to the feeling that you have when you read, a classic novel like Jane Eyre or like A Farewell to Arms, and the characters overcome their struggles and they develop, and it's the same feeling. The only difference is that the characters are younger. That's it. I mean, the problems are essentially the same. And I will have you know that I didn't read Harry Potter until fairly recently. I think I was 29. It was only a couple of years ago. And the majority of the people who were telling me, you need to read this series, you would love this series, if you love to read, you would love this series, are in their late 30s, early 40s. They're parents. They have careers. They have lives. But even they were telling me that you need to read this series. I mean, that just brings me back to a good story is a good story is a good story. It doesn't matter if it's YA, children's, new adult, It doesn't matter what genre it is. If it's a good story, then it's a good novel. Then that's it. It's really that simple. Something that I have noticed too, and maybe it is just me, but something that I have noticed when reading YA is that if it's written well, most of the time, I can relate to the characters on some level. Even if it's just one small thing, I can relate to them. And I think it's because as a 31-year-old, I'll be 32 in March, so as a 31-year-old, I've already been through my teenage years. I've already been through my early 20s. I know, I've experienced it. I know what it feels like. So you can already, anybody can relate to it, whether you're older than a teenager or you're a teenager, because you've already experienced it. I feel that you're more likely to relate to something if you've already experienced some form of it and already been through that age, more than relate to something that you haven't yet experienced. For example, I have heard many things about the change that women go through, but I have not personally yet experienced that change. Thank God. Though when it happens, I'm sure it'll be a good time. Maybe not. I don't know. My point is that if you haven't personally experienced something, you might not be able to relate to it as well as if it's something that you have experienced. Now, maybe it's not the exact thing that you've experienced, but I mean, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of confusion, desperation, finding yourself, the coming of age feel that a lot of YA literature has. A lot of us have been through that. A lot of us are currently going through that. One of the things that Willow talked about in her video was that YA poses a lot of questions and a lot of just really in-depth discussion topics. And especially if you read it critically, you can discern, unhealthy relationships versus healthy relationships. You can identify those things. And immediately that brought to mind the book that her and I briefly discussed, They Both Die at the End. That novel is a YA novel. That novel really presents some thought-provoking questions about life and about death and about, quality of life versus, quantity of life. Anybody who tells you, oh, well, you read YA, that's not a real book, like, go home. Yes, it is. I sound really angry. I'm not. I'm just super passionate about this. Like YA, there's no difference, literary difference between a YA novel, a children's novel, a new adult novel, an adult novel. They're all novels. It's all literature. They either it's good or it's trash. I mean, let's face it. It's either good or it's not. And it really has nothing to do with what genre it's in. Sure, I mean, what genre it's in, you might enjoy, a sci-fi novel over a romance novel or the other way around. You have your preferred genres, but really whether it's a YA novel or not, that really makes no difference. The only difference that it makes is that your characters are younger, but you're still following a character's journey. You're still, you're still experiencing things along with this character that in theory should provoke a discussion, should, incite some really in-depth analytical thoughts. I mean, what else can I say? Really though. So why I think that YA is vital to literature as a whole, I mean, my mom's a teacher and she has told me so many times, there are some kids in my class that really enjoy to read, but there are other kids in my class that just really don't enjoy reading. And I'm, trying to figure out ways how to engage these kids in reading, be it magazine articles or novels. But she told me, she was like, if you ever come across a novel that you think my kids would enjoy, please let me know. And I will make sure to include it in my class library. And over the years, a lot of the novels that I've recommended to her have been YA. Before that, she had a lot of classic literature in her shelf. Granted, a lot of those classic literature books are technically YA. Several novels, classic literature, that if it was published today, it would be considered in the YA category because the characters are young. It's written to relate to teenagers. And I mean, if you're getting a teenager to pick up a book, like, that's great. Instead of just hanging out on their phone, you know, tweeting and texting and Pokemoning, whatever. If you could get them to pick up a book and start thinking critically about literature and about, you know, storytelling and all these great discussions that could come from reading a book. I mean, I think that's a successful venture. I think that that's a good thing and it's a positive thing. And it really emphasizes, you know, developing that young mind and growing your imagination and growing your critical thinking and, you know, growing all of these things, even forming opinions. I mean, I have formed an opinion on a subject matter that I really didn't know much about by reading a novel, a YA novel, a new adult novel, whatever, a novel, forming an opinion, you know, or reading about a particular circumstance and then doing my own research on that subject and then forming my own opinion. So, I mean, I really can't say it enough. Anytime you can get a young person to pick up a book, why are you complaining? Why are you complaining? And I mean, honestly, if those people, a lot of times those people that make fun of people who read YA, they've never picked up a YA book ever in their life. They're basically just following the crowd. And they always use Twilight as an example. Oh my gosh, well, Twilight, man. Yeah, I mean, no shit. Twilight is not the best example of a good quality YA novel. But that doesn't mean that every YA novel is that way. I mean, I can name more than a handful of YA novels that are good quality literature that in a few years they will be considered classic literature and may very well be taught in classrooms. You never know. I mean, I'm sure that when Ernest Hemingway was publishing his novels, yes, they were a success in the moment, but I don't think anybody was like, you know what? One day, he is going to be considered one of the biggest names in classic literature. This book, these works are going to be on every college list. No! They just said, man, that is a really great book. He's an amazing writer. Gosh, I really hope that this book sticks around for quite a time. And boy, did they. Oh, Papa. But anyway, those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Or she kind of joked that if it was 2012, people would make a response video. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make this a fun little game. Let's make it a game. I want to. Like, can we please? I had a lot of Cuban coffee this morning. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tag two people. And you guys make a video response to this. Let's get a discussion going. So I'm gonna tag my new critique partner, Nat Lopez. If you guys have never watched his videos, he's awesome. I'll link him down below. And I am also going to tag Joe the Great Bibliophile because I can already sense that she is going to have some thoughts on this and some great insight on this. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I don't know if it would be considered a rant. Please leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, guys. So leave your comments below. Let's get this discussion going. What does YA literature mean to you, and why do you think it's important? Do you think it's important in literary canon? I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure Willow would be very interested to hear your thoughts. I know she's had a lot of people comment on her video, so I mean, I think it's great. I think it's a great discussion to have. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, ding the bell so that you get notifications every time I post a video. I post every Wednesday and Friday. Be sure to follow me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram. The info will be down below. And I will see you guys next time.